Hafaday and welcome to My Story. I'm your host, Janella Carrera. Tonight's episode is a unique one. Not only is it our third anniversary, tonight we visit students at Teason High School as they watch an episode of My Story. Yes, we watch them watch us. And after the show, the students then write letters to the guest of the episode they just watched. So for this visit, Teason High School biology students will watch an episode featuring Julius Hunt. In case you've forgotten, Mr. Hunt was a homeless man diagnosed with kidney cancer and was literally on his deathbed when we interviewed him. Unfortunately, we do have some sad news to report. A few months after our episode aired, Mr. Hunt passed away. So when we come back, we sit down with some Teason High students to get their reaction to the episode. Stick around. One of the students will also have an important story to share. Hafaday and welcome back to My Story. I'm your host, Janella Carrera, and as you saw earlier, some of the students here at Teason High School were watching an episode of My Story. If you recall, it was the episode with Mr. Julius Hunt, and so we're joined by Casey Rosario, who also just watched the film, and we're just going to interview you about what your thoughts and feelings are after watching that episode. Have you ever seen an episode of My Story before?
Yes, we watched one in my teacher's class, Miss Whitaker.
Okay, yes. What was the episode that you saw? Do you remember?
Her name was, but I know that she had cancer. She went to the States to get chemo. Okay. She lost her job.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I know who you're talking about. Okay, and so then, so now that you've seen this episode, which is different because this is a different situation, how did you feel while you were watching it?
I mean, at first I didn't know that he was gonna pass away, and so I thought that he was a very good person because he didn't really focus more on himself. He focused on the community and everyone around him, and I thought that he was a very thoughtful person, and it's really sad that he did pass away.
Yeah, so when you found out that he passed away, because we filmed that episode, I think a few months before he died, but when you found out that he passed away, how did that make you feel about his passing?
I mean, I was actually really sad because, yeah, he is a good person, and I don't think he really deserved it, because, yeah, he gave his life to the community instead of just always, focusing on himself.
Has it taught you anything? Do you think you'll go home and take away from this episode of My Story?
I think that the biggest thing I'll take away is that you should always be grateful of what you have, because you never know when you will pass away, because his was so sudden, because he didn't know only by the stuff that came out of his body and his cramps. And so I think that you should cherish every moment that you have and not always think about yourself.
What do you think of the lifestyle that he chose? I mean, you kind of saw the part where he talked about he chose that kind of life. Do you think different of him? How do you feel about him?
The whole time when he was explaining about how he lived, I was thinking, wow, that's really tough. Because how are you going to find food every day? How are you going to find water? How do you know where to sleep every day if it's like raining? And I think he's a very brave man. And
does it change the way you view people that choose that kind of lifestyle or have that kind of lifestyle?
I think now I can't always just automatically judge them and think, oh, they just, because he chose his own life. He chose the way he wanted to live. He chose to help others instead of himself. And I think that a lot of us people automatically assume that they just want more money. I think that it really helped my mindset and the others in the classroom that were watching.
And so I know you wrote a letter of hope Your entire class did, but you brought yours, and I was wondering if you can just read it to us real quick.
Dear Julius Hunt's family, Mr. Julius sounded like an amazing man. He helped this island so much. I really wish that I got the opportunity to meet such a wonderful man. Mr. Julius was very happy to have you guys as his family. Si Dios Maasi and God bless.
Thank you very much. It's very short and sweet, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be very touching. So we're going to do our best to try to get that to his family, all the letters of hope that were written to him. Any last words you want to say, maybe to your fellow Titans or students?
I just want to say that we shouldn't always think about ourselves and that we should think more about the others around us. Not like how they perceive us, but how we can help them. And that we should live life to the fullest because, we never know if we can have a sickness just pop up or anything.
Well, thank you so much, Casey, and for those very wise words. As young as you are, 10th grade, so that's Casey Rosario joining us here on an episode of My Story to talk about how she felt watching an episode of Julius Hunt. Thank you again, Casey, for joining us. We'll be right back. We'll have another student joining us on the show. And now we're joined by Amy Weiss, also a sophomore here at Teason High School, and she also watched the episode of Mr. Julius Hunt. And so we're going to ask you just some of the same questions we asked Casey. When you watched the episode, were you aware that he had already passed away before you started watching it?
No, I was not aware of his passing, and it surprised me greatly, actually.
Well, how did you feel while you were watching the episode?
While watching, I'm not very comfortable watching this sort of thing, and this really, it put me out of my comfort zone, and it opened up the difficult side of cancer and nearing the end, how difficult it is to have to cope with knowing that you won't be here to see another day or live another week to do something else in the world, and it.
As you mentioned, this is not something that you're comfortable with or even see. I'm assuming you haven't been exposed to death before, and so kind of seeing this opened your eyes to that. Do you think that it changes the way that you look at people, especially those who may be suffering from cancer or maybe nearing the end of life?
Actually, my father passed away from cancer.
I'm so sorry. Your father passed away from cancer? Oh my gosh. Wow.
6th grade.
Oh, wow.
But
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much for sharing that. So you do know what it's like.
yes, I do. But Mr. Hunt, his was it was sudden, and my dad, we spent all of our time with my dad near the end, and we had fun and stuff. Mr. Hunt, it just seemed that it made me very sad that he didn't have his family with him all the time near the end, and it made me appreciate what time we spent with my dad and how.
I'm guessing that's what you mean by it wasn't very comfortable for you to watch this because you've experienced it yourself and you know what it's like to have a family member with cancer. How you said this was in the 6th grade when you lost your father? As a student, as a young child who experienced that kind of loss, how has it changed you?
Well, it's definitely made me appreciate life more and how quickly things can go, and you never know when one day will be your last and how you could lose someone that quickly. And it made me appreciate every day that I live more, much more so.
Well, for your fellow students or classmates who may not know what it's like to experience cancer or have a family with cancer or even just know that kind of loss or pain, what would you say to them about, how cancer affects families?
Well, it definitely drew my family closer together because you're all sharing the same loss, you're all experiencing the same feelings, and it draws you closer near the end of that family member's life. And it definitely brought everyone to my grandma's house, and we all like spent family time together. It was nice. We enjoyed like each other's company, so it was nice. And it did teach me to appreciate life more.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And my apologies for not recognizing that. So I know you wrote a letter also to Mr. Hunt. Could you share with us some of the things that you said in your letter?
Okay. To the family of Mr. Julius Hunt, I send my deep condolences. Mr. Hunt was a beautiful soul. I love how he chose to live adventurously and helped the community in the process. His story touched me and reminded me of my own father, who also passed from cancer. He was also a very adventurous person, and it made me happy that he helped out the community as well. Mr. Hunt will be greatly missed. And love from Guam.
Thank you so much, Amy. What was your father's name?
Daniel.
Daniel Weiss. In his memory, thank you so much for sharing that, and I really appreciate you coming forward and giving your thoughts on the different sides of cancer. Like, as you said, the experience that you went through with your father is kind of different from what Mr. Hunt went through, and opened your eyes to a different side of it as well. So thank you for joining us in the show, and thank you for sharing with us your own story. We appreciate it. All right, well, we'll be right back in just a few minutes. Welcome back to My Story. Again, I'm your host, Janella Carrera, and this time we're joined by two science teachers here at Teason High School, Miss Mary Garvillis and Miss Alicia Whitaker. Thank you for joining us on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So we both just kind of came through the same thing where your students watched an episode of My Story with Mr. Julius Hunt. I spoke to some of your students, got their insight on this, and was surprised to learn that one of your students has actually been affected by cancer personally. So yes, it's common, and it kind of makes you realize how common it is. I know that you guys have actually screened some of the episodes to your students in the past. So can you talk about some of the reactions that you've gotten from previous screenings of My Story?
Okay, yes, we watched the one with Lisa Geisinger. Yes. And yes, my students we were actually all very shocked, me as well, about her not being able to get financial assistance, public assistance, because, she was in desperate need of it. And it was quite surprising that in those times and situations when you really need someone to come through for you, and Guam doesn't have any disability insurance, and so that was quite shocking for all of us. And so the students learned a lot about that your family is really going to need to come into play, your family and your friends, because you need that additional support to help you get back on your feet while you're going through treatment. Mm-hmm.
And you've also screened episodes of My Story to your class?
This episode was one of the first that we watched as a class, but we have spoken about the many cancer warriors and survivors that we do have here around the island. It's just hard to get them into our classroom, and so this is why the networking and being able to bring this story was the best way to make our curriculum alive in that sense.
And I noticed in your classroom that you have some poster boards that talk about different cancers, even outside in the main classroom. I noticed some. So you guys have been actively promoting this. Okay.
It's not part of just a promotion. It is our standard in our science curriculum that we teach on cells and the mutations of cells. And so when we bring it up to real life and the factors of application, we have to teach this curriculum part, because our society, our community needs to have the knowledge. But then what do we do now as far as living healthy, just overall to lower statistics now? Yeah.
Yeah, you know, when I was growing up as a kid, we did kind of learn about cancer, but not as comprehensive as this. I don't remember this much knowledge or lessons in cancer, and I guess we just it's how our communities changed.
And I can answer to that. It's because me being personally affected by cancer, my best friend who died about 5 years ago, it was what spurred me on to build a cancer curriculum, and that's why the EFIT ECHO program came about with our service learning program with Guam Cancer Care. And it was because of this program and my push that, hey, we shouldn't just touch this as a topic and teach it at just the superficial level of cells. We need to bring life and breath and depth into what's going on an island. So not only is it just in school, but it's in our life and it goes out into the community to change the statistics.
Right. And so you mentioned that you guys have it's been integrated into your curriculum throughout this entire school year already. Can you tell us a little bit about, I guess, you know, some of the reactions that you've had, or even if you've noticed any of the successes out of it?
Okay, yes. Well, with my class, we paid special attention to prevention. And so it was a great opportunity with the EFIT ECHO program to show them what they need to do to start thinking about it now, because it takes sometimes 10 years for a cancer cell to be picked up, you know, as a tumor, to be noticed. And so the students had their 60 minutes of exercise. They had a nutrition journal, so they tracked their food. They were tracking their intake, how much fruits and vegetables they got, how much water they got, and how much exercise. And for 2 weeks, we tracked it, and it was just so much fun. It was a fun project for them to really incorporate preventing, you know, taking an active step towards living a better lifestyle to prevent cancer.
Yeah, I mean, a journal of what you eat and the activities you do, that's
Yeah,
pretty
it was
clever.
fun, yeah.
I think that was the biggest challenge for me because I would see students coming in like all these unhealthy food and, you know, things like the word like antioxidant and how free radicals from pollution or, you know, violet rays, they don't know so much about that. So once they have that knowledge, now say, oh, I'm going to eat my antioxidants, but where do you get that? How do you get that? And so they've created all these, from our science expo to creating posters and making ads about this is what we should eat it because this prevents, you know, bladder cancer or breast cancer. Yellow food, this contains beta-carotene, and resveratrol is red food. So after they got to know that, they're empowered now, so they can go out and say, hey, now I know what to eat because now I know what I'm feeding my body to kill the cancer cells. So
Yeah, that's very clever because I can tell you, as a high schooler when I was growing up, I didn't care about what I ate. I just ate.
They
yeah,
don't,
and
yeah.
they don't see it. But now with the statistics and now with showing them, hey, this is what, you know, our people are dying of. We can't keep going like this. So now let's empower you, let's give you knowledge, and let's see if there's a change. And you know, by golly, I am so happy. One day they were coming in with eating apple, and they were even saying, Miss, look, I got my, you know, fiber today. You know, they've actually, and when they started tracking their food tracker, they would even notice, wow, I hardly had any, you know, red food or yellow
yeah.
food. So they started adding that more because we told them when you build up your antioxidant levels, you know, your chances of diseases are so much lower. So they got excited about tracking. I think that was one of the fun things that we did.
Right.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if you might have a few nutritionists in the future because of this curriculum.
We had
we-
some that were great. Yeah.
In my anatomy physiology class, it was such an eye-opener for them
Yeah.
that they do want to join in the medical field now. Yeah.
It's so amazing. You know, if I was going to high school and I had you guys as my teachers and, you know, keeping that kind of journal, I might have eaten a little bit healthier. Yeah.
Well, they were, some of them were embarrassed to show me their journal, you know, because, you know, it had like no fruits, no vegetables. I said, well, that's the point. We're just trying to raise awareness so you guys can start adding it in, you know. It doesn't have, yeah.
And I said,
Yeah,
like I said,
yeah.
we are an island that loves fiesta, and we're gonna have it, you know. But I'm just saying,
Yeah.
put in these foods that will be a cancer-fighting
have it,
food,
yeah.
and how we even taught about how your plate should have 70% of more of fruits and vegetables, and they're like, ah. But other than that, you know, it's amazing to see the turnaround and the habit changes and diets that we're seeing from the program.
Yeah.
What else did you have in your curriculum that you can talk about? I know you mentioned the journal.
For me, because a lot of our students that are affected, whether it's for their family or friends, or, they don't know where to go. They don't know what to do. They don't know what the standards of chemotherapy or radiation or holistic therapy. So this is where our partnership with Guam Cancer Care has really empowered us, so that now we have these navigators. Now we can point our students to them. And they even have surveys where they take home and they ask the mom and dad, have you had a screening? Because you should be screened. And mom, have you had breast cancer screening? Dad, did you know colon cancer is one of the highest? So the students are the one going out. And so it's amazing, because with their knowledge, and they go home with this survey, and they're pushing their parents. They're saying, Mom, Dad, I want you to get checked, because, or Dad, Mom, I want you to stop smoking. Those are what's coming out from the EFIT curriculum, because they're seeing real life and statistics and data and like episodes from my story. So yeah.
I asked a couple of your students how they felt about watching Mr. Hunt's episode, and maybe you can shed some light too, as an educator, and seeing what your students, how they reacted. How did it feel to be able to share this with them?
Well, it's always a very delicate subject, because all of us have been affected by cancer in some way, or some way, shape, or form. And so when bringing the topic up, we are very sensitive to the fact that students have had people close to them, who have gone through it or who are going through it. And so we take that journey with them so that they're able to find that support in our curriculum and with each other, and be able to share these stories and know that nobody's alone in going through it. And I think that's a very helpful thing for them, especially at this age, to know that there are other students who have gone through it, that I always include my story too with my family and share it with them, so they know that, we're all in this together. Mm-hmm.
And for me, the fact that I do have a student that has cancer, and ever since with this episode, the classmates have just bonded and always willing to help her. She's be in and out sometimes, and so it does affect us in that level and regard. We've come closer as a class and as a family, and so when we know she's not here, sometimes someone will just reach out to her. So yeah, it's the level of empathy my story has brought to my students, has brought them outside of selfishness and to themselves, to say, hey, now that so one of my classes, we don't just want to write on my story letter of hope. We want to go there and fundraise for him, and we want to sing a song. I mean, they just wanted to do more. Now that this connection's happened, you're seeing a level of students who want to rise up and say, I want to be part of people's journey, so that we can show them, Guam, we're a family here. We want to help each other. We want to support you through this journey. You're not alone. That's what we're getting a lot out of our students' reaction to this story. It's amazing.
That's amazing. I mean, I'm glad I can be a part of it, even if it's just as a host, I mean.
This is not just our school, all the other high schools. We're so grateful for you guys partnering with us on that.
Well, we're very grateful to have you guys. I mean, you guys are amazing teachers, and I love the enthusiasm. And so thank you guys so much for joining us and for sharing with us your classroom, your students, and their reactions. We really appreciate it. We look forward to more partnerships like this in the future. Yeah.
This is the best way, because, they're our next generation, and we want to raise a good generation of people who help each other. Yes.
Well, thank you again so much. All right, we'll stay right there. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back, and thank you once again for tuning in to our 3rd anniversary episode of My Story. I can't believe it's been 3 years, and this episode truly is like coming full circle. We started with a simple gesture of providing a platform for cancer warriors, survivors, caretakers, and stakeholders to share their experiences in the fight against cancer. And now we're in classrooms, part of the school's curriculum. We really have come a long way, and everyone at My Story is grateful to every one of you for tuning in and following these stories of hope, loss, triumph, fear, friendships, but most importantly, of love. We hope you continue to follow our journey, which is truly a journey of our people as we join the fight against cancer. From all of us here at My Story, thank you for watching. Until next time, adios.